All right, so I wanted to do a real quick video before we get into Seaborn. That's kind of tying in Matplotlib to Pandas plot. So in the Panda Basics playlist, we looked at, of course, the Pandas library, and we saw that it has a .plot method that can be called on data frames or series to generate some simple plots. So I just wanted to, show you that those things can be easily hooked into Matplotlib to allow finer grain customization. So I'm actually going to be using a data file that stores sales forecasting data, and that was used in the Panda Basics playlist. Where do we get that? If you haven't watched that playlist, so I'm just going to open an incognito window, go out to Kaggle, and what you would want to search is store sales forecasting. All right. Filter to data sets, and then this Tenaya Tipre, that first entry that came up, at least on my screen, there's that store sales forecasting CSV, so you can log in, download that. It will give it to you in a compressed zip folder, so you have to extract that, and then you can use it. All right, so we're going to just do something really, really simple. Again, super short video, so I'm going to import matplotlib, not pyplot, it's plt. We'll import pandas as PD. I'm going to read in the data, and we saw when we were doing the Panda Basics what we actually have to do. We'll read this in, and there's apparently some character that's used that cannot be encoded or decoded by UTF-8, so we have to change that to a Latin 1 encoding. All right, let's get that down on different lines. All right, and I'm just going to look at the first two rows. All right, so in this data set, we have different line items corresponding to different orders. Now, it's not necessarily the case that each line item or each row in this is a unique order. We can see that with the two lines shown here. They're both the same order ID. But they're for different products. So each one's essentially, a product combination for an order, right? So if we have an order that contains multiple products, we're going to have different line items for them. And we have a subcategory, and then we have a quantity, all right? So let's just say that we want to go through and just figure out, okay, for each subcategory, what's the total quantity of things sold represented in this data set? So that's what we're going to do. So to do that, we'll do a group by subcategory ag. I'm going to call this amount, and I'll set that equal to the values in that quantity column summed up. All right, so fantastic. So I'm going to call this amount by category. And that object is a Pandas data frame. So with the Pandas data frame, we have access to a .plot method, which if we just call it with the defaults, this is what it generates. This is a really bad plot for this example because we have essentially categorical or discrete things that we're trying to plot. We're plotting that with a line plot. So we would be better off using a bar plot, all right? And there's a few other options that we could set. And usually what I'll do is use Pandas to get it as far along as I can. Like in this case, I might want to give some borders to these bars to make things kind of pop a little bit better. And then I might want to remove this legend. So I could do that with saying, okay, well, edge color is an argument that is accepted when the kind is equal to bar. And then I can say, well, legend. Legend equals false. Let's just make sure that that is working. So, I've got to put my comma. There we go. All right, and we could add even a Y label. So we could say, well, let's do Y label is equal to amount. So again, there's other arguments that it will allow, and that does depend on the type of plot. So if you're doing a line versus a bar, so if you're doing a line plot, you won't have an edge color argument, right? But it will let you know. All right, one thing that I do want to show you is if I do a shift tab within that .plot function, another argument that it takes is AX, which is a Matplotlib axis object. All right, so let's create a Matplotlib figure and axis. So I'm going to use plt.subplots, one row, one column, and let's just say 5 by 3. I'll put the plt show at the end. And now we can pass this axis off to that pandas plot function. And now we're essentially, we've plotted this pandas plot object on our Matplotlib figure and axis, right? So if I change that size, right, now I'm able to control that with Matplotlib. All right, so we can do some other things. So now we can do that customization, the additional customization that Matplotlib will really allow. Like if I wanted to remove that top and right spines, which I usually do if I'm not plotting anything on them, right? So I'll take that right and top and do a set visible, set that to false. And I might want to rotate these labels on that horizontal axis. And we can do that with tick underscore params. So this takes an axis argument, so the axis to which the parameters are applied. So you can pick either X or Y or both, where the X is the horizontal ticks, the Y corresponds to the vertical ticks. And then here's some of the other arguments that you can change: the color, the size, the font family, a lot of things that you can do. What I'm going to work with is the label rotation. So I'm going to say axis equals X, and then label rotation equals 30. All right, so we can see that we're able to do that customization within Matplotlib. And that's really the goal of this video, is just to make sure that you understand, because we did see that pandas.plot. It is really convenient, especially when you're doing like group by aggregation type of work. Usually that will get the data frame into something where pandas can interpret that to make a plot. And in particular, what does that look like? So if we look at this data frame, when we do that group by subcategory, it's creating an index that's based on those various entries for subcategory. And then we got a single column called amount. And when you call pandas.plot on an object like this, it'll use essentially the index to create the horizontal axis labels, or the ticks. And then for each column, it will plot a series. So that's why here we have our subcategories along the horizontal axis, and then we're plotting the amount as a single series in this plot. But just showing you, if you can use that .plot and get a plot that you like, then you can hand that thing off to Matplotlib and really work on that customization.